this is what's going to matter, because this is the stuff that's going to go in front of that jury.
Welcome to the Trial Lawyers College podcast, where we talk with leading attorneys and explore the ideas and the issues that are affecting trial lawyers today.
Hi everybody, this is Abby with the Trial Lawyers College. I recently had a conversation with Ken Turek and Finlay Boag about what they do to win the most difficult and emotionally charged cases that they work on. Ken Turek has obtained multiple multi-million-dollar verdicts and settlements in a wide variety of cases. Finlay focuses primarily on representing children that have been sexually abused and has obtained record-breaking verdicts. Both Ken and Finlay have served on the TLC faculty for several years, and they are on the faculty of the upcoming Trial Lawyers College Opening Statement Seminar in Newport Beach, California, coming up January 20th to the 22nd, 2017. You can register online at triallawyerscollege.org. Today's podcast is a recording of the conversation I had with them. I hope you enjoy it. One of the main things that I wanted to talk with you about is I understand that you have a unique way of preparing for these really difficult cases, and I wanted to know more about that.
Sure. I'd be happy to. Well, Abby, the kind of cases I've been working on now for about 8 years are these childhood sexual abuse cases. And for about the last 3 years, Ken's been working on the cases with us. I'm part of a trial team, and Ken's been working on the case with us. You've got these little kids, boys and girls. I mean, people usually think that it's the girls, but little boys also. But there was one specific case that Ken and I were working on with 3 other lawyers in San Jose, California. There was a school, and the teacher was keeping in these second grade, first and second and third graders. He would keep them in during lunchtime and during recess. And in California, you're not allowed to do that unless you get permission from the principal in advance. And if you do that, you're supposed to keep the doors open, the windows open. You're not supposed to be a teacher one-on-one with the kid behind a locked door. And that's what exactly was going on. This teacher would, in this part of San Jose, California, what you have are a lot of Vietnamese, recent immigrants. And so the parents didn't really speak English, and the kids, they were first generation here, and they were taught, with your teacher, what you have to do is you have to obey your teacher. And so the teacher would have these kids stay in at lunchtime, and the principal, this is where the difficulty came in and where we had to use some trial lawyers college techniques to try to figure out how to handle her. She was the sweetest lady. She had a sweet face. She was a fairly recent mother and just a nice lady. And when she, we knew that the jury was going to like her, or they weren't going to be angry at her. So Ken was going to cross-examine her. And I was sitting on my porch talking to Ken, and, we were thinking, well, what are we going to do with this lady? I mean, everybody likes her. I like her. Ken likes her. Everybody, but she just blew it. I mean, she was getting comments from the kids, comments from the parents about what was going on. He'd bring them in and he'd say, I'm doing this Helen Keller exercise. And what he'd do is he would blindfold the kids, and then he would put things in their mouth. Well, you could imagine what he was putting in their mouth. So, yeah, second graders, first and second graders. So, anyways, this was going on. I mean, dozens and dozens of times it had been happening during the school year. And so we had this principal who should have been keeping an eye on this. This teacher was supposed to be out on the yard duty, and he wasn't showing up. And he would call the yard duty teachers, who were usually parent volunteers, on their walkie-talkie, and say, send the little girl in. And the girl, I don't want to go. And they would bring him in, and there he'd be behind closed doors doing his Helen Keller exercise with them. So we had this principal, and she was a nice lady, and she was just incompetent. She wasn't mean or nasty so Ken had to cross-examine this lady, and we were scratching our heads thinking, well, what are we going to do here? So Ken sat in the first chair, and I said, okay, and Ken, it wasn't just me, it was his ideas as well. And I think we actually called Ben Bunn on the phone too and got some ideas from him. So we put her in the first chair. You're familiar with the chair back methods that we use?
I am, but maybe just for the article, if you wouldn't mind going into that a little bit.
Yeah, so what we did is we put Ken in the first chair, and the first chair is when you talk about the things that you tell the public. What's she going to say in court when Ken starts asking her this question? Oh, I cared about the kids. I was looking out. I was watching this teacher. He was really sneaky. He did these things behind my back. You know, all those kinds of excuses and whatever. Just the kind of garbage that you say out loud. Then what you do is we went into all that, extensively, and then had Ken stand up and put a chair behind him and had him sit in the second chair. And in that second chair, we had a conversation with Ken reversing roles with this principal, where he's told the truth, where he started telling the truth about what was and her feelings and everything. He was this woman, her name was Lynn. He was Lynn, and he was saying, I really blew it. God, I really just messed up here. I can't believe that, gosh, I had these warning signs, these red flags, and I missed red flag after red flag. This guy wasn't showing up on yard duty. He was keeping students in. He was having the yard duty teachers bring these children. I should have known about this, and I really kind of blew it. And then we had Ken get up and go into the third chair as Lynn. And now we're in this place where she says she's saying things that she won't even say to herself hardly, or maybe only at night, when you're just about ready to fall asleep and, the truth comes out or whatever. And that's when she was saying, I love kids and I blew it. And if the school district would have trained me, if they would have told me what to do, if they would have given me some guidance here, I would have followed the rules and I would have made sure that this didn't happen. And I could have protected these kids. My whole life, I in high school and in junior high school, I wanted to be a teacher. All I wanted to do was work with children. I wanted to make their lives better. And I know that what's happened to these little girls, repeated sexual molestation and oral copulation on their teacher, has damaged these kids for life. And they're never going to be able to trust in their relationships and their self-esteem and their, their own self-worth and their value and everything has been hurt forever, and I can't get that back. And I've damaged these kids, and if I'd have known, I should have caught this. I really blew it, So we were going into all of that kind of stuff. And Ken, you want to add anything here?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is simply the one thing too, that this lady received a meeting from one of the children and the children's moms, and one of the girls' moms. And she called the office, the home office, and the home office basically told her what to do, which was the wrong things. And so and the whole time she was defending the school, and in that third chair, she really discussed how she wasn't trained, these people didn't follow the rules, and she's been kind of left out here to dry. And so it's a method of understanding and getting around what's a real difficult issue when you have a witness that's very sympathetic. So what do we do with it? And I don't know, I mean, just as a little bit, I think Finlay will agree, these child molestation cases take all of our TLC training and expertise, I think, more than any other case I've ever been involved in, because there's so many emotional dynamics, and Finlay is great with working with the parents and understanding them and the kids, and it's a team effort to do it in a way, because there's so much emotion involved, and sometimes even with the defendant, So go ahead, Finn.
I was just going to say, imagine me and Ken Turek. Okay, I know you know Ken, you don't know me, but I'm a 55-year-old dude sitting there with a fourth grader, a girl who's now in fourth grade, and talking to her in a room about what this teacher did to her, and having to having to build up trust, and meeting with these young people and their parents. The parents weren't in the room. You'd have times with the parents, you'd have times with the kids, you'd have times with them in the room, and you would meet with them time and time and time again before you might even discuss anything about what happened. You might just want to know, what kind of music are you into? And just try to build this trusting relationship with the kid, and then I kind of digress a little here, but it's very difficult.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, and Finley's right, and there's also the dynamic. Sometimes the parents, one parent will blame the other, or there'll be divorce in effect, or they're not getting along, or they share custody. So there's all these emotional dynamics that in the preparation of the case really require a lot of sensitivity and understanding and caring for all of the people involved. And so there's no question that without the TLC training, I think Finlay would agree too, we'd be way behind in, I think let's just put it this way, I think we're way ahead on the human elements of the case because of our work with TLC and the training we've gotten through psychodrama, personal psychodramas, and just the understanding people, I think it's really, really helpful.
Role reversing with a parent. So we know a parent's coming in, and this parent is just saying, look, let's just forget this whole thing, right? Let's forget the whole case. We're not going to talk about it at home. We're not going to deal with it at all. So we start role reversing with that parent, and you start saying, what's going on there, and typically what you're finding out is the parent thinks if I don't talk about it, if I just sweep it under the rug, that it's all going to go away and my kid's going to go back to normal. And the only way we get to that place or that place of understanding is through, the psychodrama techniques like role reversal is a big one that we use. I was going to kind of finish that story, and then if that's okay, about Lynn. So we role reverse, and in fact, my wife even was helping out, saying, "Oh my God, she was helping us understand where this woman might be coming from." So we were really trying to get inside of her head, and as Jerry says, get inside of her skin and walk around for a little while. So we were trying to do that, and then when she went up on the stand, Ken prepared a cross-examination. And when she went up on the stand, Ken and her, they were like best friends. Ken was saying, I know you love kids. And she said, I do. And you probably wanted to work with children your whole life. I did, back in high school and, and all this. And you wanted to protect kids, right? Yeah. And your whole life has been dedicated to these kids, right? And she's saying, yeah. And boy, if that school district, because we had identified the villain was the superintendent of schools, not this principal, but the superintendent of the school, who was a nasty human being. Just, came on the stand. She was just defensive, mean, nasty, rude, everything you could imagine. Well, so we wanted to move, as Jude says, move the blame up the ladder. So we were moving the blame up the ladder to the superintendent. And this principal, Ken, was saying, if they would have taught you this, a certain thing that you're supposed to do, would you have followed that law? Oh, of course I would have, but they, you said that they didn't teach you that. No, she couldn't really answer. So Ken was cross-examining her, kind of almost like a friend, just having a conversation in a coffee shop or something, or in her living room or something. And it was a thing of beauty. And when he was done, everybody in that courtroom liked Ken. They still liked her, and they were going to like her. And they knew that she was a good person who just blew it. And the reason she blew it was because the superintendent and the school district didn't give her the training she needed that was required by California law to protect these kids. So that was I thought, and all credit goes to Ken. I mean, he was just the nicest guy in the world up there, and soft spoken, and just, and they were like getting along. I was sitting there going, wow, they're just like two old friends having a conversation here. And she was agreeing with Ken in front of the jury. And then, anyways.
Yeah, well, thank you, Finlay. But, it's always a team effort. But the goal that we teach at TLC is to identify who, like Finlay said, to go up the ladder, who's really the villain, if you will, in the case, who's the problem, and try to make it so. And that was what we call a soft cross, and that's just something we learned through psychodramatic work. I mean, that's, you know, what you have is you have a good person that's put into a real difficult dilemma in their life, and rather than beat them up, because the jury's not going to beat them up, you can tell your story through the witness, through cross-examination, but doing it in a way that is caring, if you will, even of an adverse witness. Because law school just teaches most lawyers to go in and destroy the witness, or try to. And sometimes when you go in to destroy a witness, you destroy yourself in front of the jury. So the bottom line is that that's a technique that is really helpful, and we would have never, I probably would have gone in there swinging at her and been mean to her. You know, before TLC, I would have been mean to her and lecturing her. And they left one thing out. This is a lady that when she went to get on the stand was already tearing up. So here's this person that's almost at the height of vulnerability, and, you know, and I think in a normal setting, you have this urge to beat her up because she blew it. She really had the chance to save these kids from a lot of anguish, and she didn't do it. So you get angry at her. But anyway, TLC helped us to the best way to cross her, and it worked. It worked really well. So,
yeah, and that case, you know, I mean, I don't know if you want to know, but it's settled after Ken's cross-examination of her. It's settled for $15 million.
Oh, well done.
Yeah,
yeah, and I think fantastic. I think their offer going in was like 3 or something. I don't even remember. It wasn't very much.
Yeah, it was like go screw yourself offer.
Yeah, exactly.
As you guys are working these cases, what do you think is the most critical element of it? I mean, we've talked about the cross-examination. We've talked about the discovering the story part of it. Would you say that the discovering the story, where you're working with the each of the kids and their parents, is that where the case is really built, or is there another part that you would say is the most critical that you master?
Well, I'll tell you my view of it. I think the first thing is the real understanding and respect that we have for each other. First of all, I think Finlay is so talented and is so open to the world of psychodramatic and TLC techniques and learning, like I am. And so we both respect that about each other, and we're open to ideas and brainstorming. And even though there's, you know, these are tragic cases, we have fun with it. We have fun with each other. We like each other, and the group that we work with are good guys and women. And so I think that's number one. And then number two, I think you hit it on the head with the discovering the story. We need to reenact little moments of it, or become a person, or, you know, go to the board, brainstorm. And I think it comes from the synergy that leads to discovering the story. And then if we do that, and the good thing about Finlay is we have a relationship where he'll say, that wasn't very good, or I liked it when you did this, try this with a little bit more oomph here, or whatever. And I think that, you know, part of what TLC does is it makes you appreciate each other within TLC, and then you combine that with the learning we've got, and I think it's just a great combination.
Yeah, I think it gives you a lot more, as they say, you know, arrows in your quiver. You've got a lot more tools to work with. And for example, you know, we're not going to reenact or discovering the story of a little girl being, you know, molested. I mean, we're certainly not going to do that with the client, because we may re-traumatize them, and, you know, we're not qualified to do that. But what we may do is we may look at a scene of their life beforehand. A lot of times what happens is, you know, these children, after this happens to them, you know, they've got post-traumatic stress disorder, and that changes who you are as a human being. So we'll maybe go look at a scene of a child beforehand, laughing, outgoing, funny, you know, in the middle of parties and, having a lot of friends and always wanting to go do things and, a good student and, great with the mom and dad, whatever. And then we'll take a look at them afterwards. And one of the things that happens when you have post-traumatic stress disorder is you'll see that they start having depression and rage. They're very, very stressed. The stress means it's essentially post-traumatic is after a trauma, and the trauma, of course, is being sexually abused when they're 7 years old or 6 years old. And then stress means fear. So they've got this post-trauma fear disorder. So they're very, very, the thing that we notice is they're very, very frightened, and they have triggers. And one of the triggers, quite often is they trusted the teacher. They trusted the school. They trusted all this stuff. And now their trigger, whenever they have to go into a situation where they have to trust something, it may just be going to their first soccer practice and they've got this new coach that's a man. One of Ken's girls, she went to the dentist, and the dentist, had her open her mouth and he was putting something in there. She just flashed back to that scene in the classroom with the teacher screaming and horrified, and this is what we see.
She ran out of the dentist's office. Yeah.
So what we'll do is we'll use the discovering the story scenes, maybe with the mother, or maybe just Ken. We'll hear about it and then we'll reenact it. Ken and I and the other lawyers we work with will reenact that scene of that little girl going into the dentist. Something as simple as just going to the dentist to get her teeth cleaned. I mean, it's a terrible thing. So we'll use discovering the story all the time on different scenes, and different things, and really helpful to understanding where are they coming from, what's going on. And it's important with mom and dad. Dad says, just forget it. We're never discussing this again. Why are we doing this? Mom says, no, this is going to be good for her. It's a very, very tough. It's not a car accident where somebody was just sitting in a park at a traffic light and somebody ran into him, which, the trauma could be horrible there as well. But there's a lot of emotional things that go on with this, and it's very important trying to step inside the skin of the other person.
You're right. I think it's best way maybe is like emotional complexity. There's a lot of emotional complexity in the child sex abuse cases. And I think Finlay's right. He hit it right on the head that, we try to understand. And the other thing is a couple of things. At TLC we learned the importance of the story. What is the story of your case and the emotional content of your case? And doing this discovering the story work allows us to feel what the child or the parent feels, and then when you tell the story in the courtroom, the feeling is real, it's not manufactured, it's not conclusion words, conclusory words is probably the best way to put it, and the juror can feel what the child or person feels, and it's very powerful because you're real, because I feel it when I'm saying it, or if Finlay's giving the opening, it's something that the juror can feel because we feel it. And if we've learned anything in Trial Lawyers College is you gotta feel it and then have others feel it, And, to go back to the basics, we have a lot of moments where these cases will touch something in us. So we have to understand what do we feel, that's going on with us about the case or a parent or something in the case. So it's like I said, it's multidimensional and you got to work on it. It's not something that's, a broken bone.
And I know Ken and I both have children. I have a son and a daughter, and Ken has two sons, and sometimes, we'll be talking about taking me back to that. My daughter's in college now, but when she was young, if something like this, and I don't even want to go there. It's too scary to even go there to even talk about it. But we'll try, and it's just, I can't, the things that these families are going through. It's not just the child that's being, hurt and damaged. The entire family, the entire structure, and you do see. Just the last case we worked on, which was not this case, but another one that Ken and I worked on, the mom and dad, the dad, after this happened, closed down, and the mom wanted to really talk about this with her husband, and he wouldn't talk about it, and they ultimately, I'm not saying that's the reason, but ultimately they got a divorce, and so, I mean, the whole family's been traumatized when something like this happens to one of their children. And it's tough. It's tough working these cases. I mean, I got to tell you. And the thing that, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if this is relevant to anything, but I really hate it when other lawyers try to do these cases and they're treating it like it's, it's a car accident or it's some other kind of injury case. Those are all emotional. Those are all different. This has special things that you need to deal with, complexities. Like Ken said, emotional complexities that are just on a different level. And without TLC, without the psychodrama that I've gone through personally, whenever I volunteer, or whenever I'm asked to teach at the college, I always want to go during psychodrama week because I learn so much from watching others and from participating and being a protagonist, not a protagonist. What am I, Ken? Auxiliary.
Auxiliary. You're an auxiliary.
Auxiliary. Yeah, when I get to do that stuff. So, and it gets me, keeps me in touch with the human side because it's possible to forget all that when you're a lawyer and just say, what are the facts? Let me get this out here. And, you really, really have to deal with these things. And a lot of times, we're doing these opening statements and we don't want, the parents, I mean, it's just to even ask them, do you want to be in the courtroom? Do you want to hear this? I mean, most of them say, no, I don't want to be in the courtroom. Or sometimes they'll come in and you'll see a mom, sitting there and, halfway through when you're talking about what happened to her daughter and she just loses it and leaves the courtroom crying, and this is heartbreaking stuff.
And it's a damage you can't see. You can't see it. The little girl looks great. The boy or girl are doing better at school because a lot of the children excel in different ways. They shut everything else out. And you can't see the damage, but it's real and it's there. And so that's,
There's two other things I wanted to talk about. One was when, we've had cases where the clients, like, for example, this may happen to a child from the age of 10 to 14. And you might not get this case until the person is now 20, right? And their life is a total mess by this, a total disaster. And what happens is when you present this evidence to a jury and a jury hears that the child did nothing wrong, it's some sort of cathartic moment for that person. I've seen it happen time and again when the people get a little bit older, into their late teens or maybe their early adulthood. And what happens is they finally, because they've blamed themselves, they put this shame on themselves, this guilt and this shame and this nastiness and this dirtiness, they place it on themselves. And what happens is they'll say, wait a minute, these people heard this and they have just said I did nothing wrong. So more than any amount of money that may make a difference in them, this can begin a road to healing. And like, for example, the case I'm thinking about, this one guy, I just remember him just, he was 20 years old at the time when the verdict came in, and he was standing there and he heard the verdict and he was just bawling his eyes out with joy and relief. And I was talking to him later and he just said, I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. They said I didn't do anything wrong, the jury. Now, the criminal case, right? There was a criminal case and the guy went to jail. See, the criminal case is about punishing the wrongdoer, punishing the man who did the molestation. This case is about saying to the victim, this is about the victim. This is about the survivor. It's about you did nothing wrong. Let's take that shame that you're feeling, if we can, and let's put it where it belongs. It doesn't belong on you, young man or young woman. It belongs on the school district or the YMCA or whatever facility it is, the church that didn't protect you, and it belongs with the person who did the molestation. You need to get rid of all of it. And I've seen dramatic changes. There was this one kid I'm thinking about a year later who was an extraordinarily talented guitar player because what he did was he shut himself off This happened to him at 12, and this kid was playing the guitar like Eric Clapton or something. He was just phenomenal, but he would never go out in public. He would never perform. He would never play. And then a year later, I saw him at a club, and he was playing and everything. He was just like a weight had been lifted off of him. It was really phenomenal. So it has these kinds of cases have, a positive effect on the survivor. And the other thing that I was going to say was, we sued the Los Angeles Unified School District, and we got a $23 million verdict against them. And it was the biggest verdict ever against the Los Angeles Unified School District. And they have 60,000 employees. They have 1 million students under their care. It's the second largest school district in the country. And because of what happened, we had an expert witness come in who talked about how to keep kids safe in these kinds of environments in schools, etc. And she nailed them. She just nailed them. And after the trial, they finally admitted, okay, maybe we did blow it. They weren't doing that during the trial. But after the trial, they went and hired our expert witness, and they revamped all the rules and all the policies for 1 million kids in the Los Angeles Unified School District. So I feel like we're helping, there's kids that are not going to be molested at school by their teacher or the janitor or the principal or whatever, and we're never even going to know who those people are because it didn't happen, right? So there's a lot of things, other than, of course, the money and all that kind of stuff, to help these people, the survivors, live the rest of their lives. But most importantly to me, and I think to Ken, is that the difference that you make when these people stand up, they feel empowered, they feel unburdened, and also the thing that we're seeing with the rules and the policies and the procedures changing. It's really been a powerful, last 7 or 8 years for me.
Yeah, we see the policies being changed, and and also there's an awareness that comes out of it that, because in these cases, the more you learn about it, typically these predators are seducing the parents too. They're seducing people. It's always the person you think is the least likely to be the predator, and so parents need to be aware of it too, because it's an epidemic. 1 out of 4 little girls by the age of 18 have been sexually assaulted, and 1 out of 6 young men. And those are staggering. We see it in jury selection too. That's the other thing. And if in the trial, we try to discuss and get permission with jurors, and in the TLC world, if you make an environment of caring and openness, and you show, like Jerry says, you show them yours, pretty soon we have people so open on the panels talking about their own experiences that, it's just really powerful. So
we had a lady one time where she said, the question was, we try to make it a safe space for people to tell the truth. And one woman came out and said, I've been married 35 years and I've never even told my husband this. And she told us that she was a victim, of sexual abuse when she was a kid. So, we do. It's amazing. And the only way you get there is like Ken said, from, listening and showing them who you are and being open and genuine with them. And you wouldn't get there. I never would have been able to do any of this stuff if I wasn't using these trial lawyer college techniques. My friend said before everything was a nail and I was a hammer, He said all you wanted to do was hammer everything. And now I think, oh wait, maybe there's another way, and I've learned that through the trial lawyers college.
So getting to that place during jury selection where you've built that much trust that a woman would come out and talk about something like that she'd held secret for so long. And how do you get to that place?
Well, no, I think it's what we teach at the college, and that is being open and honest, not manipulative, and it's a feeling, and it's not a theory. It's not something you can read in a book and it's not something that you can read off a page in front of the jury. It's who you are as a human being when you get up to pick that jury, and the way you handle yourself and the way you care for each juror, even ones that disagree with you or call you names. You're in the moment, and you have to just be present and not reading off some script.
I always say you have to let go of your agenda.
Right.
You know? I'm sorry, Ken, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No. I think you're right on. I mean, I agree with you 120%. That's a great way of putting it. Because your agenda is manipulation. If you have an agenda, it's usually one of manipulation. And that jurors see through that so easily, and then you lose credibility and you end up wondering why you lost the case.
Yeah, and in these cases, I mean, I think jury selection is extremely important. And, you know, the thing that we do at the college is called the listening exercise. So you have to show them who you are. You have to be authentic and genuine and all that kind of stuff. You have to let go of your agenda. You have to, one of the things I always say is you have to stop judging people, and you have to seek to understand who they are and where they're coming from and what their life experiences are. I'm not trying to judge anybody. I just want to understand this and what's going on with this person. And when I can understand, you know, you'll be up there, you'll be having a conversation, and the world disappears, and it's just you and that person. And you don't even know what your next question is. You forget and it's perfectly okay to say, wow, you know, and talk to them, and there's this invisible thing that's going on. You're connecting on some level and everybody else in the room can see it. There's this thing called, in physics, it's called, sympathetic resonance. If you have two pianos in the same room and you hit a G sharp, the other piano, the keys or the strings will start to vibrate. The G sharp strings will start to vibrate. And I think that's true with people too. If you're feeling, you know, if you're honest, if you're open, if you're sympathetic, if you're understanding, if you're not judging people, everybody can feel it. Those same strings are vibrating, and people will start being open and honest with you in ways that just blow you away. I mean, just blow you away. You're just sitting there. I've never told my husband this, and through the tears, the woman says, I was molested by my grandfather when I was from the age of 7 till I was 11, you know, and nobody could understand why I was this way or why I did this my whole life or why, you know, I've had these issues with relationships and with alcohol and, you know, all these things. It's really phenomenal. I mean, really, really phenomenal thing. Imagine standing up in front of a group of, well, there's maybe 60 or 80 people in a room, and there's a woman who's never told anybody in her life that she was molested, and you build such trust and openness that you can ask the question, does anybody here ever know, the way we typically ask, has anybody here ever known anybody who was a victim of being sexually abused when they were a child? And this is after you've built up a lot of trust. This is after you've made it a safe place. This is after you've shown them yours. It's an amazing thing to watch. And then, you know, people are saying, I mean, yeah, it's just amazing. And when you think about it, 25% of the young women and like 18% of the young men have been sexually abused, you know, before they reach the age of 18. So when you ask that question, you know, a lot of hands go up. If you've built a safe place where everybody's honest and open and authentic, people have what I call bullshit antenna. They can tell. If you're up there bullshitting them, they know. If you have an agenda, they know. If you're judging them, they know. So anyways, and I learned to do all that stuff through the Trial Lawyers College. I never could have done any of it. None of it. It changed, the Trial Lawyers College changed my life. Not only in the courtroom, but working on cases, but with my wife, my children, with friends, everybody.
Did that change happen like immediately? Like you walk out of the 3-week college and it's an immediate gigantic change, or was it something that happened over time?
There was a huge change there, but it's been an ongoing process. I went to the college in 2004, and it's now 2016, so it's been over 12 years since I went. And I'm still struggling with it and still working on it and still, trying to, as I say, I'm a work in progress and I got a lot of work to do, and my friend Jude would always say, we got to work on the horse. Well, I'm continually working on the horse.
I want to talk a little bit more about the discovering the story process that you guys do with your clients. It sounded like it's a huge investment of time into these clients. And how do you know when it is the right time to talk about the heavier issues? And how do you know when you spent enough time and gotten everything that you need in order to present the case?
Well, I think what we do is, first of all, I agree with you that it sounds like it is a great investment of time, but it's not, and I don't want to sound too trite, but in a lot of ways it isn't work. It's a process that, although it enjoys pain, it's a process that we know that works, that is personally satisfying, that we know is going to help the clients the most. So we just go to work on it, we set aside 2 or 3 days and we'll just work on this case, and we'll take one aspect of it and we'll talk about liability issues and reenact them and maybe pull something from that. I really like that. Let's come back to it. Maybe we'll work on it. For example, in the last case that I tried with Finlay's help, one of the issues, along with other lawyers, but one of the issues was what happened to my little girl, and this took place on a bus. And so what I did was I went out to the site, and we had pictures of the bus, and this ties into the opening statement, so I know you wanted some information for the upcoming seminar that Finlay and I and others will be at. But we reenacted it. Typically you can show a picture of the bus and talk about it, but what I did with Finlay's help, and I worked on it several times, was setting the scene of the bus and then taking the jurors during opening statement onto the bus and touching their senses through all 5 senses as I told the story of what happened to this little girl. And we worked on it, and Finlay would say, well, this is a great point where you might want to consider, holding her hand. When you did that, you were kind of holding her hand, and it was very effective. And so as the story develops and we learn really what happened, I incorporate that and not just tell the jurors the story in opening, but show them what happened. And they are right there on that bus, just like psychodrama, where you set a scene and you go there. Well, we take the jurors there, and it's very effective, and it's not. As a trial lawyer, you have a date coming where you have to perform. And it's like any other performance, whether it's a play or a speaking engagement, you're motivated to do your best if you're what I consider a good trial lawyer. And it's not work. It's not hard in the sense because you want to improve. And I don't know how many sessions we had, Finlay, but we typically, like I said, we do it over several days. Work in the morning, have lunch either brought in or go out for lunch, work in the afternoon, sometimes into the evening, not always. We want to have fun a little bit. But, I don't know, it just comes together. And then we piece together. Finlay's a master, and I'm not blowing smoke, he's a master at designing an opening statement, at saying what you need and what you should include, and he's really influenced me a lot in how he, outlines things and what needs to go where and how to assist the jury on this, or to figure out where the defense is going to go and get there first, because the plaintiff lawyer has a great, in the plaintiff civil world, has a great advantage because we go first. So if we know the defense is going to go to A, we want to get to A first. And really, Finlay has really helped a lot in that regard. People will say, oh, your opening was great. Well, it's got his fingerprints all over it, you know. I mean, anyway, so that's one way we did it. And yeah, it's the truth. And then the other thing is we also get input from other TLC lawyers. For instance, I had an issue the night before my last opening, the one I'm just talking about, and Ben Bunn, TLC person that went in 97, I talked to him on the phone. He gave me a great idea. I asked Finlay if he would come to he came to my hotel room at like 6:30 in the morning. We rehearsed it. He critiqued it. And I went on, and probably 2 hours later, I was given the opening. So
Killed it.
Yeah, I did well. But it's a constant, ever-evolving process that the TLC family, one of the things I love about it, is that people are willing to help. They're creative. They think outside of the box. They think in human terms. It's a great thing. You know, I was really scared in one of my openings, and Ben said, why don't you just bring the little girl and put her in a seat and talk to her and tell her how you're going to do your best today. And that vision, I did that. And before I did my opening by myself, I sat in a room and I brought her in, and it just calmed me because I was very, you know, it was a moving and motivating moment, and it was just his idea. Ben's a creative force, and so it's just fun to get this additional input on things. So, and he's going to be there in January as well. So we're going to have a heck of a team there to help folks with opening statements. That's for sure.
Oh, that'll be great. So, Finlay, what do you think is the keys to an opening statement?
I want the jury angry at the defendant. I want the jury, you know, scared of the defendant, and I want them loving the plaintiff. And if we can achieve that, and then you have to tell a cohesive story from beginning to end. And, you know, we do a lot of the things that I learned at the trial lawyers college, the first person. You know, you step into the shoes of the doctor and you talk from the point of view of the doctor. Maybe you step into the shoes of the parent going down to the school and saying, hey, wait a minute, what's going on with my kid here? You know, maybe you're the child. You're doing a lot of those kinds of things. It has to be a story that gets the emotions. You have to get to the emotional core, the emotional truth of your story. And if you can do that, the jury will feel it, and they'll be motivated to take action to see that justice is done. So I think it's really getting to the emotional truth of the whole thing. And the way to do that, only way I know how to do it is through psychodramas and role reversals and, you know, doubling. And, you know, Ken did that surplus reality where he had a conversation with his client right before opening statement. And, you know, that was a work of art that Ken, he had all the words and the content down, but that morning on game day, Ken, I could feel it. Once again, I could see those invisible, there was just this human connection in the room, and it was coming from Ken, and he led and they followed.
And that's a case that their highest offer going in was $3 million for 4 little girls, and after our opening statement, they settled it for $9 million.
Yeah. Right. Right after, boom. One of the things that we do is we typically do, 8, 10, 12 focus groups before the trial. So, we're working on these cases for months and months. Not just working, working our butts off, we'll do an opening statement 6 months before the trial date, and we'll test it in front of a group. I call it the laboratory. we'll take it to the lab and see if the experiment works. And invariably it doesn't. And then you just get a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better. And finally, at the end, you have this, you have a beautiful opening statement. But it takes tons and tons and tons of work. I always say if there was another way, I'd do it. But I haven't found it yet.
The beauty of that work gives the trial lawyer the comfort in getting away from his or her notes. So you're not stuck to a script. You know what you're going to say because it's within you. So you're not reading anything. You can set your notes aside, maybe have a brief outline with a few words on it. And like Josh Carton says, in law school, we're taught to pay attention and our duty is to the script. No, because that's how they teach us. In trial work, the duty's to the listener, kind of like on the stage, and that's what his background is. But all this work not only refines the message, it refines the message giver because you're bringing it and you're more comfortable because you know that the words are going to come. And it may not be something that's as poetic as what's written, but the feeling is there, and the feeling so often is more important than the words.
Yeah, it's I've read these things that 7% or 10% of the communications of what the listener gets is in the words, that 90% of it is coming from somewhere else. And and if you're totally, it's one of the things I always say to people is, if you're totally prepared, you can be spontaneous. You can be, alive. You can, you have blood pumping through your body and air going into your lungs, and you can be a human being in front of these other people. However, if you're not prepared, you're just impulsive, and impulsivity never works. And this is one of my things that I get up on a soapbox for, because I have so many lawyers say, well, I don't want to be too prepared. I just want to, wing it. I just want to get up there and be in the moment. The only way to be in the moment is to be prepared. Then you're free.
I agree.
You got no baggage.
I agree.
Spontaneity.
140%. I've been doing it. Yeah.
Spontaneity requires preparation. That's all there is to it.
Yes.
When
the judge says, "Are you ready to give your opening statement?" Then you're
yes.
really prepared enough, or not. So
yeah.
I mean, you got to put the time in. You just have to really work at it. And the other thing is there's great power. There's great power in being prepared. A lot of lawyers, quite frankly, cave. They cave in because they're not prepared, or they're worried, or the uncertainty, the fear overtakes them. And if you're prepared, you can go forward and just do your best and your best job for your client. And so that's what this preparation gives you. And there's no question at all that the TLC edition, like Finlay said, there are more arrows in your quiver. Well, there's a lot of arrows that they give us. So the TLC provides.
I always say that the learning, people go to the trial lawyers college and then they leave and they say, well, I'm a graduate. I learned. I always say that's when it started for me. That was
right.
The very beginning.
And that's probably why you've been so successful. You never stop learning.
Always trying to do it better, to do something better. And then you get working with people like Ken and some of the other lawyers we work with. And Ken pushes me and I push Ken. And it's safe to do that. It's a creative space and everybody's just trying to work to make it better. And people will take risks. I've done some things and then later on went, oh, what the hell was I thinking? But nobody judged me and said, hey, he's an idiot. Let's not work with him anymore. It was a risk. We made a choice that we're not going to go in that direction. And that's okay. So.
Yeah, there's no judgment. It's just, let's see if it works. Let's try something creative. Let's be the stair that somebody fell on, or let's be someone in the room, be the TV that suddenly comments on the effect on the family or the picture on the wall. I mean, TLC just frees you up to try new things all the time. And it's Go ahead.
I was going to say, we've been the lock on the door that the teacher locked while he had the little girl behind the door. We've been the pieces of paper that he put in the window so that nobody could see into what he was doing, And so we've done all those things. I mean, could you imagine talking to 5 lawyers sitting around and somebody's the lock on the door? We've done that.
But as the lock, we know what's going on and what he's going to do, and we feel dirty because we're a part of it. I mean, and who knows? We never used that, but it actually gave us a new dimension to understanding what happened, and that's the beauty of TLC. It sounds a little nutty, but it's just magical sometimes, most of the time.
I bet, stretching your imagination in that way, it helps you tap into ideas that you wouldn't have had access to before. And it might not work in the courtroom, but it gives you that availability to choose from an idea that does work.
Right.
Right. And being that door, you can say, and then I forget the guy's name now, I forget the guy's name at the school. I try to, flush this stuff out of my head afterwards. But, he walks over and there's the door with the lock on it. And then you show your hand, locking the door. Click. No one can get in now. That lock is and he can do what he wants. So you may not be the lock, but you're certainly going to maybe take everybody's attention to that lock, and you wouldn't have gotten there, if you hadn't done these things that seem silly sometimes. And I've worked with lawyers who are saying, well, I got to get out more written discovery. I got to get out 5 more interrogatories, and I gotta, and I'm thinking, whoa, that stuff's all important, but this is essential. This kind of stuff, using these this is what's going to matter, because this is the stuff that's going to go in front of that jury.
Yeah, Finley's right on that. We're so afraid. We're so afraid, and almost every trial lawyer I know is afraid of getting up and looking foolish. But an essential part is to get up, look foolish maybe, look unprepared, and from that process, that pain, you realize, either motivation comes or some good comes out of it, something you did was great, and you just got to be willing to get better, and it just takes work.
Thank you for joining me today to listen to Ken Turek and Finlay Boag. I also want to thank Ken and Finlay for spending the time with me and for sharing so openly. Ken and Finlay are on the faculty at the Trial Lawyers College and will be teaching at the Opening Statement Seminar in Newport Beach, California, January 20th to the 22nd. For more information, go to triallawyerscollege.org.
To find out more about the Trial Lawyers College and upcoming seminars, go to triallawyerscollege.org.